He married the wrong girl and kept her anyway. My name is Ayla Brown. I was just a florist until the night I was abducted and forced to wear a ring that wasn't mine. He should have let me go, but men like Gino Cortisoni don't make mistakes, and when they do, they never apologize. They claim, they protect, and sometimes they fall in love with the wrong girl after all. Let's begin. I'd seen it when I opened the shutters. Parked across the street, engine running, tinted windows. Too clean for this part of Brooklyn. Still, I swept the floor, arranged the lilies, pretended I didn't notice. I always pretended. That was my life. Unnoticed, unchosen, invisible. And then around 6:47 p.m., right as I was locking up, someone stepped out of the car. 3 men. Black suits. No words. I didn't scream. Not even when the bag went over my head. Because some part of me, the smallest, quietest part, had always been waiting for the world to notice me. I just didn't expect the world to look like this. I don't remember the drive, just the silence, the way the air tasted like leather and steel. I remember someone saying, "She fits the description." Then another voice, "He won't care. Just get her there." Get me where? They never answered. By the time the bag came off, I was inside a villa with marble floors and gold fixtures. A woman in silk shoved a white dress into my arms. "Put it on. You've made him wait long enough." I stared at her. "You've got the wrong person." The slap came before I saw her hand move. "Your voice is not required tonight," she hissed. "If you ruin this, you ruin him." She left the room like a warning, and I stood there, shaking, holding a dress I didn't choose, for a man I'd never met. They married me under candlelight and silence. No vows, no music. Just a priest too scared to ask questions, and a man who didn't look at me once. He stood a full foot taller than me, sharp suit, sharper jawline. His hair was black as sin, eyes colder than the marble beneath. Our feet. When the ring slid onto my finger, it burned. Not because of the metal, because it wasn't mine. His hand gripped mine tightly as he said, "I, Gino Cortisoni, take you to be my wife." I opened my mouth, to scream, to confess, to tell him I wasn't her. But the look he gave me, slow, calculating, a blade in his eyes, froze every part of me. He already knew. He knew I wasn't the woman he was supposed to marry. And he did it anyway. The room they locked me in after had no mirrors. Just a 4-poster bed with iron posts and silk sheets I didn't touch. I tried the windows, bolted. I tried the door, locked. The dress was still on me, wrinkled and damp with sweat. My fingers shook as I traced the ring, heavy, platinum. A single diamond in the center, surrounded by blood-red rubies. A ring meant for someone else. Not for Ayla Brown, florist. Ghost girl. The one everyone forgot. I sat on the edge of the bed, too numb to cry. Then the door opened, and he walked in. Gino Cortisoni moved like violence. Smooth, deadly, unbothered. He didn't speak at first, just looked at me, one hand in his pocket, the other brushing his jaw. Then finally, "You're not her." My breath caught. No. He stepped closer. "You were convenient." I didn't choose this. He studied me like I was an equation he was deciding whether to solve or erase. And then, with no change in tone, no warning, "I'm keeping you." My heart slammed. "Why?" "Because you're mine now. And because letting you go would make me look weak." "I'm not yours." He stepped closer. His voice dropped. "Do you want to test that theory, Tesserina?" The Italian slid off his tongue like sin. Little treasure. It didn't sound sweet. It sounded like a claim. He turned, heading for the door. "You'll be moved to my estate tomorrow. Sleep while you can." "I'm not her," I whispered again. He paused in the doorway. "I know." And then he left, leaving me married, claimed, and caged. For a ring that wasn't mine. The next morning they dressed me like a bride again. Not a white dress this time. Midnight silk, high collar, slit to the thigh. Everything about it said, "Look at her." And everything in me screamed, "Don't." I didn't get to speak. 2 women brushed my hair, painted my lips, and told me not to fidget. Mr. Cortisoni dislikes nervous energy. He dislikes a lot of things, I wanted to say. Like the truth, like me. But I stayed quiet. Because in a house full of wolves, silence is the only armor a lamb has. We left in a convoy. Black cars, armed drivers, one sitting across from me with a gun on his thigh like a reminder. No one called me Ayla. No one asked my name. They called me La Moglie, the wife. And just like that, my identity was erased. His estate was bigger than I imagined, gates taller than buildings, cameras watching the wind, 3 wings, 2 pools, a private chapel, a prison dressed in wealth. Gino waited for me on the steps. Suit pressed, sunglasses hiding the eyes I was beginning to fear. Not because they were cruel, but because they weren't. They were blank. Void. Like I didn't matter enough to stir emotion at all. He nodded once, then turned and walked inside. I followed. They gave me a room in the east wing, white and silver, too bright, too clean. The windows didn't open. The doors only locked from the outside. A maid left me water and said, "Mr. Cortisone will summon you at 8. Summon. Like I was a servant. No, like I was an object. Something placed, convenient, just like I'd always been. At 8, the door opened. He was already waiting in a room I hadn't seen before. Dim, low fire, leather chairs, and a chessboard in the center. He didn't look up when I entered. Just moved upon. Sit. I did. He poured wine. Not for me, just for him. Then finally his voice, "You lied well." I flinched. I didn't lie. You didn't correct anyone. I was kidnapped. You didn't scream. I was scared. Gino turned his gaze on me fully then, and for the first time I saw something flicker in his expression, something cold and curious. "You're still scared," he said. I didn't answer. Because he was right. He moved his knight. "Tell me what you do." "I'm a florist." "A florist?" I nodded. "None that matters?" "No one looking for you?" The question stung. "No," I said quietly. He leaned back, smirked, convenient. I hated the way the word sat on his tongue, like it wasn't an insult, like it was a reason. "You're not what I wanted," he said. I swallowed. "I know. But you'll do." I looked down at the ring still on my finger. "Why keep me?" I whispered. "If I'm not her." He didn't blink. "Because I can't lose face." "That's not an answer." His voice dropped. "Yes, it is." He stood, walking slowly behind me. I didn't turn, just listened to the sound of his breath as it passed my shoulder. He didn't touch me, but I felt claimed. "You'll stay in this house," he said. "You'll smile when told, dress how I say, and if anyone asks who you are." He leaned closer, his mouth nearly at my ear. "You're my wife. Do you understand?" I nodded, barely. He exhaled, slow, deliberate. "Good." Then he walked away, and I sat there, a pawn in a game I didn't know how to play, wearing a name that wasn't mine, with a man who didn't choose me, but kept me anyway. They dressed me like a queen for dinner, not a wife, not a prisoner, a queen. Gold satin, slit higher than comfort, neckline that made my skin blush under their stares. My shoes clicked on the marble like I belonged here, like I'd been chosen. But we both knew that was a lie. Gino didn't speak as he walked beside me. He didn't offer his arm, didn't look at me. His focus was somewhere else. The game behind the game, always moving pieces. We entered the dining room and silence fell. 8 people at the long table, all of them watching me, all of them judging. One woman with scarlet lips leaned toward another and whispered too loudly, "That's not the girl he was meant to marry." I froze. But Gino didn't. He turned his head, slowly, like a predator clocking its prey, and gave her one look. She paled and shut her mouth. He didn't have to say a word, and maybe that was the scariest part. The meal was endless. Course after course I couldn't taste. People spoke around me, but never to me. The first time I opened my mouth to answer a question from the man across the table, Gino's fingers brushed my wrist under the table. Not gentle, not cruel, just enough pressure to say, "Don't." So I didn't. I sat still, ate little, smiled when I remembered, played my role, even if I didn't know the script. After dessert, he stood and offered me his hand. It was the first time he touched me in public. His fingers curled around mine, possessive, unshakable. I rose from my chair and he led me down a hallway I didn't recognize, through a door that clicked locked behind us. He said nothing until we were alone. Then, "You handled that well." I didn't turn. I didn't say anything. Exactly. I did turn then. "And how long do you expect me to keep doing that?" His jaw tightened. "Until it's safe." "For who? Me or you?" Silence. Then he stepped forward, and for the first time, I saw a sliver of tension in his expression. Not guilt. Something closer to regret, but not quite. "Hold on, before I say what happened next. Tell me this. Would you have screamed? Because I thought I would kick and scream. I thought I would fight. I guess I'm not who I thought I was. Now, let's get back to my mistake." He walked past me and poured 2 fingers of dark liquor into a glass. "I didn't expect her to run," he said quietly. "The real bride. She left me exposed," he added, "in front of enemies who'd do anything to humiliate this family. And I was just there," I said. "Convenient," he echoed. The word used to cut. Now it just confirmed what I already knew. "I should have told you sooner," I whispered. He looked at me sharply. Told me what? That I wasn't her. That they had the wrong girl. You think I didn't know the second I looked at you? I blinked. Then why? Because it was already done, he snapped. The priest was there, the witnesses. The news would be out by morning. Do you think I had time to search for her? Or did you think I'd let anyone know I'd been made a fool? My throat went dry. He stepped forward, towering. You were there, and you were quiet, and you were mine the second you didn't scream. His voice dipped. And now you stay mine. I shook my head. This isn't real. He didn't argue, didn't kiss me, didn't even touch me. He just looked at me like a man who didn't care what was real, only what he could control. I made vows, he said darkly. You wear my ring? The world believes it. That makes it real enough. And what happens when the world finds out? He smiled. It was the most terrifying thing I'd ever seen. They won't. I slept alone that night. The room was too quiet. My dress still hung on the back of the chair, heavy with the weight of falsehood. The moonlight caught the ring on my hand. Gino Cortisone didn't choose me, but he claimed me. And in his world, that was worse, because it meant he'd never let go. The first time I noticed the shadow, it wasn't in the hallway. It was in the mirror. I'd been reaching for a book in the library Gino rarely used, one I wasn't supposed to know about. My reflection tilted just slightly, catching a flash of movement behind me. But when I turned, the corridor was empty. Still, something shifted that day. A tingle at the base of my spine, a cold breath down my neck, the sense that someone was watching, not Gino, someone else, someone who knew I didn't belong. It started small. Footsteps I didn't hear again, a door I'd closed left open, fresh flowers delivered to my room, white ones like the bouquet a real bride might have carried. I didn't ask for them, and I didn't touch them. Because suddenly, everything felt like a threat wrapped in lace. I told Gino, not because I trusted him, but because I didn't trust anyone else. He stood with his back to me while I spoke, watching the courtyard from his office window. When I finished, he said nothing, just reached for the phone on his desk and pressed one number. Bring him in. A minute later, the door opened, and he walked in. The man from the hallway, the one I'd only ever glimpsed in corners. Tall, scarred, with pale green eyes like glass. He moved like a soldier, quiet and lethal. This is Matteo, Gino said. He's your shadow now. My what? Your bodyguard. I blinked. I thought I already had guards. You do. They watch the estate. Gino turned, eyes sharp. Matteo watches you. He didn't speak to me the first day. He followed at a distance, always one step behind, always where I wasn't looking. The second day, I caught him standing outside the guest room I sometimes used to escape. You're not very subtle, I muttered. I'm not supposed to be, he said, voice rough. I'm supposed to make them hesitate. I stared at him. Who? He didn't answer, but the look in his eyes chilled me. Someone was watching. Someone else. And Matteo wasn't guarding me from Gino. He was guarding me for him. That night, I passed a pair of men in the hall who worked for the house. They stopped talking when I walked by. One of them muttered just loud enough, "She won't last long." The other snorted. She wasn't even the one he wanted. I kept walking. Didn't stop, didn't cry. I waited until I was inside my room, door locked, back against the wall, breath trembling. Then I stared at my ring. Fake vows, fake marriage. But the threat? That felt real. An hour later, someone knocked. I didn't answer. Ayla, came Gino's voice through the door. Not wife, not Tesserina. My name. I opened it. He looked at me for a long time, like he wasn't sure what he'd find. Then, "You're bleeding." I looked down. There was a cut on my palm, shallow from the glass I dropped earlier. I didn't notice. He took my hand before I could flinch, held it gently, like he hadn't threatened to ruin me days ago. He led me to the bed, sat beside me. Didn't speak as he dabbed antiseptic onto my skin. His hands were warm, steady, different. "You said someone's watching me," I whispered. He nodded once. "They want to see if I made a mistake." "Did you?" His thumb brushed a drop of blood from my skin. "I don't make mistakes," he said, and I wanted to believe him. Because the only thing scarier than being chosen by mistake was being targeted for it. I wasn't supposed to be in the garden that late. It was past midnight, the house asleep, the moon bright enough to silver the hedges. I needed air. Silence. Space. Space that didn't smell like Gino's cologne or danger wrapped in velvet. I didn't think anyone would be there, but someone was. I heard him before I saw him, Matteo's voice low and clipped, speaking into a small radio near the back gate. She's alone. Tell him if you want to get close. You'll need more than a shadow. I froze. The gate rustled, a sound like footsteps retreating. Then silence. Mateo didn't move. He didn't even glance back. But he knew I'd heard, and he didn't try to stop me when I turned and ran. I didn't stop until I reached the front corridor, lungs burning, heart hammering. Gino found me there. Of course he did. He didn't ask why I was shaking. He didn't ask what I'd seen. He just took one look at my face and led me upstairs. Not to my room. His. It was the first time I saw his private world. Dark wood, black silk sheets, walls lined with books and weapons. A room designed by a man who never planned to share his life with anyone. I stood just inside the door. He stepped behind me, close enough to warm my spine. I told you someone was watching. Why? My voice cracked. Why would anyone come after me? He didn't answer. Not with words. Instead, he brushed my hair off my neck and whispered, "Because you're mine now." I should have pulled away. I didn't. My breath caught as his fingers moved lower, grazing the back of my dress. Not possessive, not cruel, just claiming, slowly, softly. "Gino," I whispered. "I won't let them touch you." I turned to face him. That was the mistake. Because when I looked into his eyes, I didn't see the cold. I didn't see the man who'd taken me. I saw fire, controlled, contained. Barely. His hand came to my waist, thumb brushing bare skin. My body betrayed me. Heat pooling, my spine arching toward his touch like it wanted to be claimed. "You're shaking," he said. "I'm not scared of you." He smirked. "You should be." His hand came up to my throat, not choking, just holding, just feeling my pulse race beneath his fingers. "I know you're not her," he murmured, "but you are mine." "Why?" His thumb brushed my jaw. "Because you stayed." He kissed me, not soft, not slow. His mouth claimed mine like he had a right to it. And maybe he did. Because I didn't pull away. I kissed him back. God help me. I kissed him back. Fingers in his hair. His hand splayed across my spine. My knees weak as he walked me backward, pressing me against the cold wall, mouth moving like he could devour every lie between us. And for one impossible moment, I wanted to let him. But then his breath hitched. His forehead touched mine. And just like that, the fire stilled. He didn't take me to the bed. He didn't undo my dress. He held me. That was worse. Because it didn't feel like dominance anymore. It felt like need, like he was the one unraveling. Later, when I lay curled in his bed, his arms around me, his breath at my neck, I whispered the thing I shouldn't have said. I was never chosen before. He didn't answer, but his grip tightened, and in the dark I swore I felt him press his lips to the top of my head. Not a kiss. A vow. The world didn't feel quieter after that night. It felt louder. Every touch, every glance, every breath between us charged the air until it snapped. Gino hadn't kissed me since, hadn't held me either. But something between us had changed. He no longer avoided looking at me like a mistake. He looked at me like a secret, like something he didn't know what to do with, but couldn't put down. I stopped pretending not to notice things. Like the fact that Mateo never strayed more than a hallway away, or that certain doors on the property were always locked. Or that Gino took phone calls late into the night, low, clipped, and in a language I was beginning to recognize as Sicilian, not just Italian. And then there was the envelope. It was slid under my door sometime around dawn. Inside, a newspaper article folded neatly. Real Cortisone bride still missing. No official statement. Below it, a single line, typed on plain white paper. "Does he think you can replace her?" I didn't scream. I didn't tell anyone. I just sat on the edge of my bed and stared at the ring on my hand. He knew I wasn't her, and he kept me anyway. The next time I saw Gino, he was at the edge of the pool, shirtless and silent, staring into the water like it owed him answers. He didn't turn when I stepped outside, just said, "Who gave it to you?" I blinked. "What?" He turned then, eyes cold. "The article." I didn't say, "You didn't have to." I took a step back. "I don't know who left it." He studied me, then exhaled through his nose. "They're watching you again." My heart twisted. "And you?" I never stopped. That night, I stayed in my room. I couldn't sleep. Not because I was afraid of them. Because I was starting to be afraid of myself. Afraid of how part of me didn't want to leave. Afraid of how I waited for his voice in the hallway. Afraid of how I wore the ring, like it meant something. Before I keep going, are you enjoying my story? Tell me in the comments where you are listening from. I would love to know. Now, back to what he did. 2 days later, I got sick. Not dramatic, not dangerous, just a fever and a cough that made it hard to stand without the world tilting sideways. I told no one, but somehow he knew. I woke up to find Gino sitting at the edge of my bed, sleeves rolled, tie loose. Why didn't you tell anyone? I tried to sit up. He pressed a warm hand to my shoulder and said, Don't. I'm fine. You're not. I closed my eyes. You don't have to stay. I know. Yet he didn't leave, not for hours. When I drifted in and out, I felt his hand at my wrist. Not holding, checking. I think he thought I was asleep when he whispered, You're not her. But you look better in the ring. My throat caught, and I stopped pretending I was asleep. By morning, he was gone. But a single white rose sat in a glass by the window. Not 37, just one. And somehow, that meant more. It started with a laugh. Mine. Soft. Quick. Barely anything. But it was the first time it had slipped from my mouth since the day they put a ring on my finger and called it fate. Matteo had been standing by the door of the sunroom, arms crossed, as I sat cross-legged on the couch, flipping through a book I had no interest in reading. He made some dry comment about how the guards outside had bet on whether I'd make it a week. Let me guess, I said, smiling faintly. They all lost, he smirked. Only one thought you'd last. I took his money. That was the moment I laughed. And that was the moment everything shifted. Gino walked in 5 seconds too late. The door opened. My smile vanished, and I watched his entire body go still. He didn't speak, didn't blink, but I knew the second he saw Matteo near me, relaxed, that easy rapport lingering in the air like smoke, that something broke in him. He dismissed Matteo with a single glance. No words. Just a flick of his fingers like a king ordering an execution. Matteo left without a sound. I stood. What was that? Gino didn't answer. He stepped forward, closing the space between us, slow and deliberate. I backed up until my spine met the cold glass behind me. Did you touch him? He asked softly. What? Did he touch you? I stared. No, of course not. He reached out, brushed my hair back, let his fingers trail down my jaw. I don't like people playing with what's mine. You're being ridiculous. His hand slid to my neck, thumb pressing gently beneath my chin, not hard, not painful, but firm. Tell me what he said. It was a joke, that's all. His gaze narrowed. I laughed. Don't. I flinched. Don't what? Don't give pieces of yourself to anyone but me. The words shouldn't have hit the way they did, but they did, because they weren't cold, they weren't cruel, they were possessive, unfiltered, raw, and terrifyingly honest. He released my throat and stepped back, dragging a hand through his hair. I don't want to kill him, he muttered. I crossed my arms. You wouldn't. He looked at me. I stopped breathing. You think I won't kill a man for making you laugh? He said, voice low. You think I've never killed for less? I didn't answer, because I did think that. And I didn't know what scared me more, his threat, or how badly I wanted him to mean it. Later that night, I found a folded note tucked beneath my pillow. Be careful who you soften. Some blades are meant to stay sharp. I didn't sleep. The next morning, Gino didn't come to breakfast. I was halfway through tea when his sister appeared. I hadn't seen her since the night of the dinner. She moved like smoke, expensive heels, bored eyes. She sat across from me like we were equals. We weren't. You're not what I expected, she said. I get that a lot. You weren't the one he was meant to marry. No, but he's still keeping you. I sipped my tea. That seems to bother people. She smirked. It bothers me because he's changing. Changing? She leaned forward. My brother doesn't protect things he doesn't plan to destroy later. I should have walked away from that conversation feeling afraid, but instead I felt something sharper. Curiosity. If Gino was the blade, what did that make me? A handle? A wound? Or the one thing he'd never planned for? Someone he couldn't cut without bleeding too? The first shot shattered a window on the east wing. Glass exploded like ice across the marble floor, and for half a second, my body refused to understand the sound. Then the alarm screamed. Red lights bled into the hallway. Men shouted in Italian. Boots thundered. Matteo appeared out of nowhere, already moving, already pulling me down behind a column. Stay low, he said. Don't argue. I didn't. Because this wasn't fear anymore. This was proof. They weren't watching me. They were coming for me. The second shot came from the garden, the third from the roofline. Coordinated, clean, professional. Gino's voice cut through the chaos. Sharp, furious, absolute. Get her to my room, now. Hands grabbed me. Not Matteo's this time. Gino's. He didn't drag me. He claimed me. one arm locked around my waist, the other shielding my head as he moved us through corridors I'd never seen, past doors I didn't know existed. The house felt smaller with every step, like the walls were closing in to watch. We burst into his bedroom. The door slammed, bolted. Silence hit harder than the gunfire. I was shaking so hard my teeth clicked. Gino turned to me, hands on my shoulders, eyes burning. Did they touch you? No. Did you see anyone? No. He searched my face like he was counting my breaths. Then he swore, low, vicious, and pulled me into his chest. That was when it hit me. I wasn't shaking because I was afraid of dying. I was shaking because I almost lost him, my hands fisted in his shirt before I could stop myself. Why? I whispered into his chest. Why me? He didn't answer right away. Instead, he tipped my chin up and looked at me like he was finally done lying. Because you became leverage, he said. And because I let you. My heart cracked. You said you don't make mistakes. His mouth brushed my forehead. I didn't. Then his lips slid lower. Temple, cheek, the corner of my mouth, slow, intentional, like he was choosing each second. I should have stepped back. I didn't. I leaned in. And this time, when he kissed me, there was no restraint, no audience, no performance, just heat and hunger and the truth we'd been circling for weeks. His hands framed my face, mine pressed into his chest, feeling the hard, living proof of him beneath my palms. He kissed me like he was afraid to stop, like if he did, the world would break through the door again. He backed me toward the bed, not rushing, not tearing, claiming. When my knees hit the mattress, he followed, covering me, grounding me. His mouth left mine only to rest his forehead against mine. Say it, he murmured. Say what? That you're staying. My breath shook. I don't know how to leave. His eyes softened. That was worse than the gunfire. He didn't rush what came next. Every touch felt deliberate, reverent, like he was learning me by heart. His hands mapped reassurance into my skin. His mouth left promises in the places I'd never been kissed before. Not desperate, not rough. Possessive in the quiet way that said, I've got you. When it was over, the world didn't fade to black. It narrowed, to his arms around me, to my cheek pressed against his chest, to the steady rhythm of his heart reminding me we were both still here, alive, together. He stayed awake while I slept. I know because when I stirred, his hand was still there, warm at my back, thumb tracing slow circles like a vow he hadn't spoken yet. You're safe, he whispered, barely audible. I believed him. That terrified me, because safety had never been something I trusted. And now, wrapped in the arms of a man who married the wrong girl and kept her anyway, I realized the truth I'd been avoiding since the night he put that ring on my finger. There was no way out. And for the first time, I didn't want one. He wasn't in the bed when I woke. Only the impression of him remained, warmth on the pillow, the scent of spice and leather still clinging to the sheets. Gino Cortisone was a man who never slept too long in one place, even with me in it. I dressed slowly, limbs still heavy, mind still caught in the rhythm of last night. The aftershocks lingered, an ache that wasn't physical, not entirely. It was the kind that pulsed beneath your ribs, the kind that whispered, "Ooh, you're his now." Even if he never says it. And I was. God help me, I was. I found Matteo waiting by the stairs. You slept well? He asked, eyes unreadable. I nodded, then paused. Was that your voice I heard in the hall earlier? No. He said it too fast. I tilted my head. You're lying. I'm protecting you. That's not the same thing. He gave me a long, quiet look. Then he said something that cracked the floor beneath me. The man who was supposed to marry Gino's bride was his brother. I stared at him. What are you talking about? She wasn't just some arranged match. She was engaged to Gino's older brother before he died. Died? I echoed. How? His jaw tightened, and that was when I knew. You're saying? I swallowed. Gino killed him? Silence. And then Matteo turned and walked away. I found Gino in his study an hour later. The fire was lit, even though it was warm. His shirt sleeves were rolled, collar open, scotch in hand. He didn't look surprised to see me. But he didn't look pleased either. You knew, I said. He didn't move. Who told you? Does it matter? Yes, he said calmly, because betrayal only has value when it comes from those you've trusted. I crossed the room slowly. You killed your brother? His eyes lifted to mine, dark and unreadable. I had to. Why? He took a sip of scotch, then said, because he planned to hand over our entire empire in exchange for peace with a rival family. He was going to sell everything our blood built to marry into theirs. And the woman? She was part of the deal. So you took her? I ended her engagement, he said sharply. The rest of her ran. He stood. I didn't plan for you, I swallowed, but you kept me anyway. I couldn't afford not to. The silence between us turned sharp. He looked at me like I was slipping through his fingers and he didn't know how to stop it. You want the truth? He asked. Fine, I did kill my brother, but not for power, not for pride. Then why? Because loyalty means something to me, and he forgot that. His voice cracked on the last word. It shouldn't have made me soften. But it did. I'm not her, I whispered, and I never will be. I don't want her, he growled, stepping closer. I want you. You don't even know me. I know enough. I shook my head, heart pounding. I know what I am to you. What's that? Convenient. His hand slammed against the wall beside my head, not touching me, but caging me in. You were, once, but not anymore. Then what am I now? He didn't say a word, just leaned in, pressed his forehead to mine, breathed me in like I was the only thing anchoring him to the earth. You're the wrong girl, he murmured, but you feel right. And just like that, I hated him again, and I wanted him more than ever, because Gino Cortisone didn't know how to love, but he was learning how to stay, even if it killed him. The next time I wore the ring like it meant something, it was on purpose. It wasn't ceremony. It wasn't survival. It was strategy. Gino had warned me earlier that morning, a charity event, high profile, all eyes on us. He needed me polished, silent, smiling. But what he didn't say was this, that his enemies would be there too, and they would smell blood. He took my arm as we stepped into the marble foyer of the Palazzo di Fontana, our arrival announced like royalty. He didn't look at me, just leaned in slightly and whispered, "They'll want to test you." Test me how? By trying to take you. My stomach tightened. You think they'd try that here? I think they already have. The room glittered with danger in black ties and diamonds. Women wore masks made of lace. Men wore power like weapons. I didn't recognize anyone. Until I saw her. The woman from the headline. The real bride. Or so I thought. She stood across the room, glass of champagne in hand, watching me with the kind of disdain that could peel skin. She knew, and she wanted me to know it. I turned to Gino. She's here. I know. Do I speak to her? No. But I said no. His tone was cold, possessive. But his hand on the small of my back, that was different. That said mine. They made us sit at the head table. A deliberate insult or maybe a challenge. And when the toast began, it came from a man I'd never seen before. Tall, northern Italian accent, his smile too wide to be sincere. To the Cortisone Empire, he said. May its newest queen live longer than the last one. The table went silent. Gino didn't move, didn't blink. I looked at the man, then stood slowly, and with my hand resting lightly on Gino's shoulder, I said clearly, Your toast implies a vacancy. There isn't one. His eyebrows lifted. Is that so? Gino looked up at me. He wasn't smirking, he was stunned. I leaned down, pressed a kiss to his cheek, and said loud enough for the table to hear, Call me wife again. The room exhaled. Or maybe it held its breath. I couldn't tell. But Gino stood beside me in the next second, eyes locked on mine. He didn't smile. He didn't speak. He just took my hand and held it like a crown he didn't plan to drop. When we returned to the estate, he was quiet, not angry, not cold, just watching me, tracking me. We ended up in the garden, the place where it had almost all unraveled weeks ago. He stood beneath the stone archway, hands in his pockets, the moonlight turning him into something more myth than man. Why did you do that? He asked. Because they needed to know. Know what? That I'm not just a mistake you kept. I stepped closer. That I'm the woman you chose to stay. He didn't answer right away, didn't touch me. Then finally he reached out and tucked a loose strand of hair behind my ear. I've killed for less than that toast, he murmured. I know. And you still stood up for me. I didn't do it for you. He raised a brow. I did it for us. He kissed me then. Not out of fire, not out of need, but out of respect. And when he pulled back, his voice was softer than I'd ever heard it. Tesoro mio. My heart stuttered. What does that mean? My treasure. My breath caught. Say it again. He didn't, but he didn't have to, because in his silence I heard it everywhere. In the way he looked at me, in the way his hand didn't leave mine for the rest of the night, in the way he didn't correct the lie. The ring might have never been mine, but the man was starting to be. It started with a whisper through the east wing, an overheard conversation, a name I didn't recognize, a time. The charity event. Midnight. Fireworks are a cover. His blood hits the pavement and no one will know until it's done. I wasn't supposed to hear it. They didn't know I was there, and they didn't know who I'd become. Not the real bride, not a replacement, but something else. Someone worth watching. Someone worth killing. I didn't go to Matteo. I didn't go to Gino. I ran, not away, but toward the one place they wouldn't expect me. The terrace above the ballroom, a vantage point, the perfect place to see it unfold, to stop it, if I could. The night air was cold, the crowd glittered beneath me, unaware, music swelled, and across the rooftop I saw the silhouette. One man, one scope, one shot, aimed not at Gino's heart but his back, where pride couldn't see it coming. I moved before I could think, through a side stairwell, past the floral displays I'd arranged myself, onto the floor, breathless, heart on fire. I found Gino in conversation with two men who reeked of money and menace. He didn't see me at first, but when he did, when he saw my face, the room vanished. "Ayla?" he asked, low. I grabbed his wrist, yanked him back one step, just as the bullet missed his spine by 2 inches and shattered the crystal behind him. Screams tore through the room. The music died. Security flooded the floor. And Gino grabbed me so tight I thought his hands would leave bruises. "What did you do?" he growled. "Saved you. You should have run." I did. He stared at me, and then, for the first time, he looked like he couldn't breathe without me. "Before I tell you what he did next, thank you for staying. I didn't get to tell anyone this back then. Now, let's finish this mess." The assassin didn't make it out. He didn't need to, because he'd already done what he came for, not kill Gino. But expose me. Someone had put a target on my back long before I knew I'd been wearing it. And Gino had just realized it too. We rode back in silence, his hand never left mine, not until we were alone again. Then he paced, and I sat, and when he finally stopped, he turned to me with a look that belonged to a man breaking his own rules. "You were never just convenient," he said. "I know. I used you, yes. I would do it again. I know that too." He came to me slowly, kneeled in front of my chair. Not humble, not weak, just real, raw in a way I'd never seen. "I don't know what this is," he said, voice rough. "But it's not a lie anymore." It never was. His hands slid up my arms. Not possessive this time, just present. "You almost died for me. I almost died because of you." His eyes closed. "I'd burn the world before I let that happen again." "Don't burn the world," I whispered, "then stay and rule it with me." I leaned in, pressed my forehead to his, and gave him the only vow that mattered now. "I'm not the girl you were supposed to marry," I said. He opened his eyes. I smiled. "But I'm the one you bled for." He didn't correct me. He just kissed me like the war was already won. By morning, the truth was everywhere. Headlines, photos, speculation. Cortisone's mysterious bride saves his life, but who is she? Mistaken identity or mafia power play? A new queen for the blood empire? The world was foaming at the mouth for answers. And Gino? He gave them none. I watched him from the window of his study, half expecting him to vanish into the morning fog like a myth. But he didn't. He stood tall, back straight, voice cold as he gave orders to men who feared him and worshipped him in the same breath. They called him boss. Capo. But they looked at me now, too, not as the outsider, not as the stand-in, as something else, as someone who stayed. "I have to go," Gino said quietly that afternoon, his voice low at the base of my neck. "There's business to settle." "Will it be dangerous?" He didn't lie. "Yes." "Will you kill them?" "If they deserve it." I nodded. "Then come back to me after." He tilted my chin. "You're not afraid of me anymore." "No," I said, "but I am afraid of losing what we've built in the shadows." He searched my face like he was memorizing it. "You're not in the shadows anymore, tesoro mio." He left that night and came back bloody, not limping, not broken, victorious. They had tried to make a statement. He'd rewritten it in fire and ash. And when he stepped into the doorway of our bedroom, blood drying on his collar, something inside me settled. Not fear, not doubt, but certainty. This man would burn the world for me, and I would never run from him again. The next morning, Gino held a press conference. The room was full. Cameras, flashbulbs, whispers. He walked to the podium in that lethal, unbothered way only he could, and said my name. Not wife. Not the girl who got lucky, my name. Ayla Brown, he said, is my wife. Not by accident, not by mistake, by my choice. The room broke. I didn't, because he reached for my hand and pulled me to his side in front of everyone. No more lies, No more silence, no more pretending the ring didn't fit. After I asked him why make it public? Why not protect the illusion? He looked at me like I'd asked him if he needed to breathe. Because they already took one truth from me, he said. They don't get to take you. I didn't know what the future looked like. Not really, but I knew it wouldn't be quiet, it wouldn't be safe. It would be war and silk sheets and bloodstains he'd wipe from my hands himself. It would be his empire, and mine only by his side. Never above him, never instead of him, but with him, always with him. That night he kissed my ring finger while I lay in his lap. You still think it wasn't meant for you? He asked. I looked down at the ruby ring diamond, the one meant for another woman, the one he'd slipped on my hand in silence. No, I said. Now I think it always was. He smiled, slow and dangerous. Good. He never gave up his crown. I never asked him to. And the world? It bent, right around us, just like it was always going to. Months later, I still keep the shop, not the old one, the windowless hole on 82nd Street where I used to hide behind peonies and pretend invisibility meant safety. No, this one sits just outside the city, larger, warmer, wrapped in glass and gold, a quiet place in a loud world, and no one comes in without being watched. Not anymore. The first week I thought I'd hate being followed. Thought I'd hate the constant presence of men who never smiled, the double doors that never locked from the inside. But then someone sent lilies without a card. And Gino turned the shop inside out to find out who. He showed up 20 minutes later. No tie, no smile, all fire. I told them, he said, no more flowers without names. I blinked. You realize what I do for a living, right? You can make them, he said. They can't send them. And that was that. He comes by when he can. Doesn't stay long, but I always know when he's been here. He rearranges one vase, never the same one twice. Leaves a note under the till. Still mine. Gee, sometimes that's all I need. We don't talk about the girl I wasn't, or the bride I replaced. There's no reason to, because no one remembers her anymore. The headlines moved on, the questions faded, and the name they learned to whisper with awe and fear was mine. Ayla Brown. The woman who wasn't supposed to wear the ring, but wore it anyway, and didn't break beneath it. At night he holds me like I'm still his shield, like I might disappear if he sleeps too deep. But I won't, because I made a choice too. He didn't just keep me. I stayed. I stay every day, every night, every moment that this empire doesn't crush me, because he holds it back with one hand and wraps the other around my waist. People still ask how we met. I smile, and I lie, because no one needs to know he married the wrong girl, and never gave her back. There you have it, my whole story. What did you think? Did I make the correct choice to stay, or should I have ran? I feel like it was the best decision I ever made. Gino is not perfect, but he's mine and I wouldn't want him any other way. Don't forget to like, comment, and hit subscribe for more binge-worthy romance coming soon. See you in the next one.